You're listening to Talking About the Blues Talk Radio, streaming live on MDO Radio Blues.
What's going on, folks? You are now once again bluesing with Talking About the Blues podcast, the number one blues podcast coming out of New York City, streaming live on MDO Radio Blues. And my guest today, Hilary Lankford, multi-instrumentalist, vocalist, wind and percussive instruments. I'm really excited about this, especially when we discuss her influences, but I'm going to allow her to give you that information. Hilary, how are you today?
I'm excellent. How are you today, Lamont?
I'm groovy and I'm bluesing as usual.
Good.
So now, let's start with your musical journey. When, if you remember, were you introduced to music?
Well, music has always been around my whole life. My mom is a vocal coach, and she taught choir for a bunch of years at her schools. So it's always been around. I guess I first started playing the piano when I was about 8. It was just one of those things where my mom was like, hey, I really want you to learn this. And I always thought you'd be able to do something with your hands. So so I'm going to go ahead and have you learn piano. So I was totally fine with that, and I did that for a while. And that was I guess that was kind of my first introduction to playing any type of music.
Now, you mentioned that your mother is a vocal coach, and she was a vocal coach for a choir. And the reason why I bring that up is because I listened to one of your tunes. I believe it's called Make It, yes?
Yes, correct.
And I noticed the old Negro spiritual flavor of it. I really appreciated that because I'm really into that. So that explains where this comes from, maybe.
Yeah, definitely. I'm definitely trained in a lot of different types of vocal styling. And this one, I wanted it to be more just kind of like earthy and raw. I'm working class. Most of us here are working class, so a lot of soul and stuff comes out of having to work hard.
So let's talk about that. I'm happy you brought that up because I believe most people in terms of fans and our audience that are those that are blinded by the lights and camera. Let's make that distinction quickly. They don't realize that artists, entertainers, historians and the like, we're really blue collar workers. This is not. It looks as if what movies show, but we're really blue collar workers. And you brought that up. So is that what you kind of cover in your original music?
You know what? I cover that a lot. It's honestly like most of us are working class if we're lucky enough to even have a job. I'm actually on my lunch break right now. After this, I'm going to go back to my 9 to 5 and finish up the rest of my work week. So a lot of my music is it's that. I don't really do a lot of love songs at all. I'm more into just kind of figuring out who I am. And I feel like a lot of times people, like whether it be, whether it doesn't necessarily have to be music, it could be anything. It could be art, any type of art at all. But people definitely relate more when it's something that they deal with. So for me, I'm 30 and I've been working, 40-hour work weeks since I was 18. So you've got that grind. You've got the grind of something that's very new, which is healthcare being more expensive than it's ever been. You've also got education being more expensive than it's ever been. I actually had to drop out of college because I couldn't afford to keep going.
Wow.
So So that was a major heartbreak and a major setback, but it's just one more building block to kind of to building your real life experiences. And that's a real life experience for a lot of people, is not being able to afford college because pricing is through the roof. Another thing that I will talk about on my upcoming album, I wrote songs just about myself, my life. My parents they got divorced when I was around 7, so a lot of us here have the issue of, we've got a broken home, maybe the step parent is not so great, home life is terrible, et cetera, et cetera. So for me, getting through my 20s and figuring out just who I am as a person is kind of what this album is going to be all about.
Now, to me, folk music is blues music, right?
Absolutely.
Some people make a distinction between the two, but just for the sake of argument in this conversation, because I don't particularly care to put a label on anyone, but I want to, for the sake of this conversation, say you're really folksy, because you're definitely sound like the voice of the oppressed. This is where we're going with this, and that I hear a lot of activism in your music. Is that correct?
That is definitely correct. I was an activist for a few years. Unfortunately, we kind of live in a time where it's not like it was in the 60s, where you could just sort of go out and you can, and people were excited and amped up about their futures and about change and things like that. So I would say that I had the spirit of being amped up and being excited about, being politically aware for the first time ever in my life. And I did that for a few years. But unfortunately, I kind of just, I fell into a place that a lot of activists do in today's time, which is you're amped up, you're excited, you're ready to go, and everybody else just cares about, Twitter or whatever's going on Facebook. So it can be a little demoralizing. So once I was kind of done with that chapter of my life, I kind of fell into writing more about politics as a way to sort of just express what I've been trying to express this whole time. And it's kind of like the first rally I ever went to, the first march I ever went on, was a march with 40,000 people for SB 1070 in Arizona. So I kind of spent the rest of my short activist career chasing that rally, thinking that we're in a new America, there's going to be some change. You can only squeeze us so much, and we don't have anything left to squeeze, so we're here. And that's what I thought a few years ago, but we're not there yet.
Well, let me ask you this. In the area of activism, because you made it clear that, unfortunately, and just on the sidebar, I remember my mother telling me as a very young guy, 7 or 8, I used to watch on PBS, Eyes on the Prize. And I was watching black folk being sprayed with hoses and things of the like, and I was yelling. And it does, I don't need to repeat some of the little angry, puny things I say puny because I was small. But to make a long story short, my mother took me to the store. She bought me a composition notebook and a pen, and she was like, "This is how you fight." She said, because you're going to, don't be a loudmouth, because you're going to be ready and willing to run and be in the front line, and when you turn around, you could wave your arm, you're not going to feel anything or anyone back there, and you'll be in the front line by yourself. Now, I say that to say, to your point, do you think that nowadays it's not having the same effects on people as the 60s? Because during the 60s, people were just as outraged and excited as they are now, but a lot of the leaders were murdered. Do you think that could play a huge part?
Well, I definitely will say that the government did a brilliant job of, of oppressing and suppressing a unified voice. But I would say nowadays it doesn't even take, you don't have to kill people to get people to dissipate. You can just harass them. Like, for example, America saw during the first couple weeks of the Occupies that popped up all over the country. They were quickly suppressed after the first week. You had raids happening in all the major cities, and this was a unified effort. So I would say that in the same types of ways that the government has been, suppressing the people's voice, they're still doing that. But I guess you can say it doesn't take murder and fire hoses. It just takes harassment, and that's enough. It takes inconvenience, and that's enough.
So the people got soft. This is what you're saying? People got soft?
I'm just saying, it's maybe we need to look at a new approach. I'm not saying that necessarily the people are soft, but I'm saying that being hit over the head with billy clubs, being shot, having dogs sticked on you, all those things, it's happened before.
Right.
And I'm just saying that we are in a different time. Technology is different. Our frames of mind are different. War is more extreme. War is sometimes I think that this generation of kids that have been born since 9/11, all they know is war. They don't know what peacetime is. So I don't necessarily want to say that people are soft because they're not. It's just that I feel like there needs to be a change of tactics, and there needs to be just a mutual expanding of consciousness, and I'm not exactly sure how that's supposed to happen, and that's part of the reason why I left direct street activism, is because I didn't have the answers. So for me, it's more just like, well, this is what I know how to do, and this is what I know that I'm good at. And I know that throughout the, throughout America's history, one of the things that brings about change are things that change culturally.
Right.
You'll see, you won't see anything about, how do I say this? Sometimes you don't hear about an issue until a celebrity talks about it.
Right.
And then you're like, oh, wait, that's what's going on,
Right.
So that's kind of, that's the way that I feel about it. Like, for example, I didn't know what was going on in the Congo a few years ago with the hundreds of thousands of women that were getting raped and murdered until I saw an interview with the author that wrote the Vagina Monologues. And
Right.
I was like, I had no idea that this is going on because, it's not being talked about in the media. And in mainstream media, you're only getting just a small piece of the bigger picture,
Right, it's
So-
sensationalized.
Exactly. So if the writer of the Vagina Monologues didn't have an interview on that particular day that I happened to watch, I may not have known that hundreds of thousands of women were raped, killed, murdered, and tortured in the Congo.
Right.
So I would say just that, regardless of what's happening with the people, as long as there are people that are culturally trying to influence and open minds, there's hope.
There is. Now, I'm happy you said that. And first, before I go into, I just want to say that's real Nina Simone of you, by the way. As well as one of my favorites, Well, Nina is one of my favorites, but this dude was very serious, and I personally think he was assassinated. But we're not going to talk about that on the air. Gil Scott Heron, because his song "What's the Word with Johannesburg" put a light. It did what you just expressed. It put a light on a situation nobody either knew or cared about. Now, with that
Exactly.
being right now, but what I want to talk about is what you are bringing to the table is what we used to call substance. And I say used to because people used to look for substance in music, right? And some people still do, don't get me wrong. But in this day and age, because you made it clear and I agree with you, we're in a different terrain. And the fight, the battle is different, right? And one of the battles of suppression is the suppression of the voice of substance. So this is kind of an uphill battle for a lot of artists. What are some of your tactics or thoughts to be able to reach the amount of people to affect change with your message?
You know, I honestly, it's just to keep going, to keep moving forward. I just started performing last January, and the goal is to just not stop, is to keep going, is to have your message heard, is to not water down your message, you know? I try to be as concise as possible, and hopefully that'll be enough, you know? And if it's not, it's not, and I would have reached who I would have reached. But I think tactically, just keep moving forward, just keep writing about what I want to write about. Part of the way to be able to do that is by, you know, making my own money. I'm not beholden to a record label or anything like that. So there's no reason why I can't continue to write about the things that matter to me, you know?
No, I agree.
And right now, like, we're being strangled. The people are being strangled. The housing incidents of 2008, the crash, everything that happened with all the banks, you know, that put a lot of people out. And a lot of people are still out, you know? And so as long as there are people that are struggling, I'm going to continue to write music about it.
That's right, which is pretty much what at least for me, is what I thought art was about, at least the music and poetry and literature side of art, to be the voice of the quote-unquote voiceless.
Absolutely.
So with that being said, what's your feeling on the new digital direct-to-consumer? Because that would actually, I believe, help give artists such as yourself leverage.
Absolutely. So I'm going to be recording this first album right after I am done with this play in July. And the plan is to have it available everywhere online for free. So if you want to have it, if your preferred listening platform is SoundCloud, you can get it there and you can download it there. If it's iTunes, it'll be free at iTunes. I'll put it on Bandcamp. I'll throw it up everywhere that I can, so that whatever your musical platform is, it'll be presented to you for free. Because if I want to get the message out, if I want to be heard, I don't want people to not listen to my music because they have to pay for it. And I know that it's a huge beef for a lot of artists, like, that want to get paid for the record that they made. But honestly, I would prefer that you listen to my music, enjoy it, and then come to a show.
Is it safe to say you're a hippie?
No, I wouldn't call myself that at all. I work my 9 to 5. I use paper towels. I make my own laundry soap, so it's like I do what I can sometimes, but not really.
Right, I dig it.
I'm growing.
Right.
Yeah.
Because you know, what you said was so. See, a lot of the things, a lot of the ideals that I hear coming from you was very, very prevalent in the '60s. For instance, but I mean, there was so many points you made, but let's just harbor on the last point in terms of you'd rather the people come to a show because a lot of that was big back then. You know, the live performance and the camaraderie of the people together. So now I do have to ask you because there are artists that will have a problem with this because a lot of them may not have a 9 to 5 or this is their bread and butter, or let's just, call it what it is. As much as artists make things for people to enjoy and to relate to, they're providing a service as well. So, how do you feel about that? Because it's like you are providing a service. You don't think you should get paid for your service?
I would love to get paid for my service, and right now my payment is you actually listening to my music. Honestly, it's like I'm up and coming. I'm trying to get heard. If I want to get heard, I have to sing, and it's like you can't sing to a closed audience.
Right.
So again, even 10, 20 years ago, record sales did make artists some money, but the bulk of their money comes from touring.
Yeah.
So if you're willing to come to a $5 or $10 show, great. If not, wait for a free show because there will be one.
Right.
The bottom line is that like I don't need a million or $1 billion a year in order to survive,
Right.
And so my hope is to one day to at least be making enough money in music with shows or whatever in order to be able to support myself.
Right.
But how do I say this? If you're a touring artist and people are going to shows, that honestly should be enough for you to live.
Right. Very humble means I dig it, and I definitely understand that. And to confirm your point, 20 to 25 years ago, it was a direct parallel for artists to be making, signed artists to major labels for that matter, unless you were a platinum artist, but early in your career to be making equivalent to what it was to being a McDonald's employee. So
wow.
Yeah, you don't make, it's like a penny, if that much, off a sale. So if you're not moving $1 million or more, you're really not seeing much off the record, especially when it comes to the other people that have piece of your pie. Some of the people you might not even know is getting paid off you. So
yeah.
Yeah. So I dig that. So now we see some. You have a nice. I want to talk about your influences because they all have three major things in common: soul, blues, and spirituals. They all have.
Yeah.
I mean, I want to say from one extent to another, but it's hard to say that. The difference among them all is it was their own person that stamped their particular musical or vocal style, but it's really soulful, spiritual blues. I mean, from Sarah Vaughan to Sam Cooke, Etta James, Fitzgerald, Amy Winehouse, his name it should be included in that because she was soul. I'm just the only person I'm surprised not to see on your list is Sharon Jones.
Oh, wow. I'm not actually sure who that is.
Now, I could be wrong, but to my understanding, Amy Winehouse was one of her backup singers, if I'm not mistaken. Either or, Sharon Jones is like the face of Daptone Records out of Brooklyn, and she's still doing the direct reflection of that music from the 60s, 50s style of rhythm and blues and soul.
Got you, got you. I'm honestly gonna have to look her up. As far as I know, Amy Winehouse was never a backup singer for anyone. She already had her first album when she was like 19, so I don't think she was ever doing backup for anybody. But I will definitely look into Sharon Jones.
Yes, yeah, I think you should because I know they came out of a camp together, and
Okay,
that I know for a fact. But
okay,
yeah, Sharon, she's an older sister, and she's she like most of her peers they're like you just stated are making majority of the bulk of their financial success on the road like it was back in the days.
exactly. You know what? Just one quick point about making money from tours. If people are not making the type of money or they're not getting the audiences that they want, in today's time, I have to wonder about recording. I have to wonder about the editing of voices and things like that. I think maybe one of the reasons why artists push CD sales and things like that so hard is because maybe they're not as good as they seem on their records.
I like that. I like that. Call to task. I like that. And that could be taken in more ways than one, right? That could be taken and you can have someone who's, let's just use vocals for a moment, right? Because you can have somebody
Mm-hmm.
who's vocally trained, right?
Yeah.
And they can hit that note so technically perfect for that matter, but you don't feel them. Then you can have someone who's not necessarily trained and they may not have the greatest singing voice. They may have a bad singing voice, but they hold the note the way that suits their personality, and the audience feels them. That's
That's beautiful. That's much more beautiful to me than a perfect like singing Disney voice and you're just bored at the show, you know?
right.
I love bands that have singers that have less than perfect voices. The Walkmen, a rock band, their singer's voice is like so, but the live concerts are just amazing. You feel like you're inside of his head. Just you can't discount somebody because they don't have the best voice. What is their message? What are they trying to say? Do you feel them, you know? I feel the same way about Elliott Smith, who was a fantastic composer, amazing guitarist and pianist, and he was just a so singer. But his songs were so deep that it's like, I don't care if you sound like, I don't know, like Fred Flintstone. Like what you're saying is like, I feel it. I have felt these feelings, you know?
I dig it. So now, explain, because I can tell you have a lot to say in your music. So what is your writing process?
So that is, it's pretty consistent. Basically, I get a theme. So in school, in college, like what they teach you to do is like, okay, so you need to, like when I first started out, it was like, okay, we're going to break down every single song that you do. So you're going to pick a song from a series of songs. You know, they've got you kind of in a box at this time, like, oh, we think you're mezzo soprano, so here's a bunch of songs, right? So pick one, and then what we need you to do is to, before you start learning it, read the lyrics and then write a story about the lyrics. So what I do when I'm writing is I'm all about the lyrics. So first of all, I figure out, like, well, what story am I trying to tell? What am I trying to say? And I usually just write down just everything that I'm trying to say and portray. And then from there, the song just flows out. I usually, I'm actually already starting to write a second album, and it's a lot easier than the first. So it's just kind of like I might do a thing. This last song I wrote, I woke up at like 4 a.m. and I couldn't sleep. And I wrote half of a song, and then I went back to sleep for 2 hours, and I woke up and I wrote the other half. And so you finish the lyrics, and then from there you decide, okay, well, what do I want to be the main, counter melody? Do I want it to be piano? Do I want it to be guitar, banjo, whatever? You write that out, and then you just kind of take it from there with all the other stuff. So that's usually how I go about it.
I dig it. That's a nice process. And I'm also starting to get the hint you're anti-system. Because you made it clear in that last statement. They try to put you in a box, and so I was like, yeah, she's. Go ahead, please.
Well, okay, like anything that you want to learn and you want to master. When you're first learning it, you've got to have parameters, or it makes it hard to learn. So you with singing or anything, you've got to be put into a box. You've got to say like, well, we've got to give you limitations so that we could grow and maybe and see if this works for you, and if it doesn't, we can tweak it up or down. But we've got to be able to start somewhere, So having restrictions put on yourself is not necessarily a bad thing, especially when it comes to voice of all the instruments, because you are your own instrument, and if you hurt yourself, you can't just go to some like instrument repair place and have the ding dinged out. No, like maybe you need to have surgery now or something like that. So one of the big things about voice and about music is definitely being restricted so that you can learn the rules, and then you're free.
So let me ask you this, because that was a very interesting and very good way of putting it. And that could be actually placed on anything like basketball, for that matter. Before you can do the Dr. J or the Steph Currys, you need to understand the basics. So I get it. Now, how would you explain to someone who did not learn the basic fundamentals and just taught themselves the best way they knew how, and it worked for them, but I guess they may need technical training to take it to the next level? What would you tell that person?
Is this for voice or for any other instrument?
Well, you know what? How about both?
Okay, so I would say if you're self-taught in voice, and you've never taken any lessons and you don't know anything about pretty much the upper half of your body as far as how it works, I would definitely say you should at least take some lessons so that you understand just what you're doing and you don't injure yourself. A lot of times you see, incorrect breathing, or you just see people, just straining from that. And what that could cause is vocal nodes, and that could either lead to permanent scarring, or you never singing again. So I would say if you're looking to have a longevity of career and you're looking to grow as a vocalist, you're going to need to hunker down and actually take some lessons. Honestly, these days, I bet you could go anywhere on YouTube and get almost what you need just from that.
Yeah.
There's so many people that are more than willing to teach you anything, how to tie a tie, 25 different ways of, how to juggle with ice cream you just made or whatever. So I would say getting technical with voice will, not only make you a better singer, but it will save your voice, to last a lifetime. Look at Tony Bennett. You think he would still be singing if he if he didn't have proper technique at this point? Absolutely not.
Right. That can also be applied to Aretha Franklin and Patti LaBelle.
Oh yeah, I definitely agree with that wholeheartedly.
Because
And
for
then as
their
far
age,
as,
they
sorry,
still
go ahead.
have. I'm sorry, I was just saying for their age, they still have powerful voices.
Yes, because they know how to use their instrument. They know how to tap into that. They've been taking care of themselves for a long time, you know. I mean, little stuff like don't drink orange juice before you go to bed because when you lay down, it will actually start to crawl up your esophagus and burn your throat. So, you know, I mean, so I'm sure you're talking about a lifetime of taking care of yourself and making sure that you know your instrument as far as Aretha Franklin goes, for sure.
So now you mentioned a little while ago that you're actually in a play right now. What's the play about? What's the name? What's your character? We didn't even know you acted. What's going on here?
Well, basically, the play just kind of fell into my lap. I have a friend that was like, "Hey, I'm doing this play for the Fringe Festival in the summertime, and I have a part that I think you would be good for. Have you ever done any type of acting?" You know, so I was like, "Oh, hey, yeah, like just a little bit in school, and then I was an extra for a little while, you know." So I read the part. It really fits like my personality.
Okay.
So I agreed to go forward with it. So the play is called Frisco is Real. It's basically like a post-apocalyptic play or a post-apocalyptic setting where I don't want to give too much away.
Okay.
But we'll just say that I feel like it's maybe like post-war or a lot has happened, and it kind of like hints towards a lot of bad leaders as far as the U.S. goes, and it's kind of split up, and we find ourselves with myself and a couple other, we'll say, like, I don't want to say bandits isn't really the word that I'm looking for, but it's
the underground community.
Yes, we'll say the underground community that is trying to get people that are disenfranchised to where they need to go. So it's just it's a story about just a few people, you know, just figuring out their own reality, and also realizing that they have more they have more opportunities than are being presented, we'll say.
Right. So it sounds like, it kind of sounds like black folk in America right now.
We'll say, I'll say that there's a lot of people that are going to be able to relate to this play in one way or another, and I definitely wouldn't disagree with the fact that a lot of black people are disenfranchised in America. I mean, just you've got people on the fringes in poor neighborhoods, and then you've got like more direct disenfranchisement, which is the prison industrial complex.
Wow.
Once you have a felony on your record, you are literally disenfranchised. So
Right.
I don't disagree with that at all.
Yeah, oh boy, I should have brought this up early on because I'm really interested in what you think about the new Jim Crow, as what it's called, as well as the housing. Go ahead, please.
Okay. So I guess I'll talk first about the
new Jim Crow. Oh, go ahead. Either
the
one.
new Jim Crow. Okay.
Yeah, because I heard your excitement. That's why I almost didn't say the second part, because when I said new Jim Crow, I thought you was coming through the microphone.
Yeah, so I mean, literally, that the new Jim Crow, the book by Michelle Alexander, is one of the best books that I have ever read as an adult. It's very informative, and I would say anybody, period, whoever you are in the United States, you need to read this book. Like, it has nothing to do with like what you think you know or think you don't know. Michelle Alexander is so concise, and she She's an attorney, and she definitely wrote this book from the angle of law, and it also comes from the angle of not believing that the prison industrial complex is in the shape that it's in. So you're talking about a lawyer that was not even understanding how extreme it was, and she ended up working for who did she end up working for? Maybe the NAACP or something like that in their law division, and it changed everything. So I would say that this book is, it's I feel like it's the book of the century.
Wow.
But anyways,
that's a powerful statement.
It's real. It really made me, it changed my views on just like people you see walking down the street, stuff like that, you know, like you don't know people's stories, you don't know what they've been through, you don't know what they've been put through for the name of money, for basically, you know. So as far as the prison industrial complex goes, it is a real, it's a human rights issue that is much bigger than people are giving credit to. So people, and Michelle kind of talked about the increase in prison population from, you know, the 60s to the 90s, and you know, she talks a lot just about how the war on drugs has specifically affected the black population of the United States. You know,
absolutely.
She talks about how, you know, if you're in prison for a drug crime, 4 out of 5 times it's for being a user. And so why only 1 out of 5 times is it for being a seller? You know, and it's like, if you're really trying to clean up the streets, then why aren't you picking up the sellers, you know? It's kind of the same thing where it's like prostitutes that get picked up by the police, and then they get in trouble for you know, trying to live and trying to make money, but you don't ever see their pimps getting busted, you know?
Right,
and
right.
So I would just say, you know, the war on drugs is a huge problem. The disparity between sentencing, whether you're caught with coke or crack, although Obama reduced it, it's still not 1-to-1, 1-to-1 ratio. You know, you get much more time for getting caught with crack, which is a black person's drug, than being caught with cocaine. So I would just say that.
But can I just intercede for a moment?
Yeah, sure.
Because that's a huge myth. The difference is, first, it was portrayed as a black person's drug in media. Now, I'm not going to say that it wasn't heavily in black neighborhoods, because I grew up through the crack era, and it definitely and totally changed the dynamic of all the neighborhoods I grew up around. But
so are you saying that you saw the change from when there wasn't crack to when there was?
I lived it.
Wow.
I saw it firsthand. Wow, I saw it. I saw it.
Crazy.
I saw it. But what I also saw was 2 things. One, cocaine was a upper echelon drug.
There you go. I get exactly where you're going with this. Exactly.
Because there's a movie that actually touches on this, and it was a very great movie that never got the light that it should have gotten. Less Than Zero.
I've never seen that.
You should, because it's one of those 80s teen movies. All of these 80s teen movies was about drugs, sex, and high school parties and stuff. But this particular one did not stand up against St. Elmo's Fire or any of those, The Breakfast Club, any of those that were popular at that time. And watching it again as an adult, because I saw it the first time, I'm telling my age. I was alive when it was, I was alive. So I saw it, and I was just like, wow, this is, but I didn't understand the depth of the movie until I saw it as a real adult and understood that this young white man was on crack.
Yes.
And they never really showed white kids on crack. Ever.
Yes. Yes. That is something that Michelle Alexander totally touches on in the book, is that everybody in every single community, they commit drug crime at a proportional rate.
Mm-hmm.
So that's something that is discussed, it's oftentimes, maybe this group or that group is painted as like the bad guy or what have you. Or you think about like when the news brings up like a drug dealer, like let's just say drug dealer in general, maybe they haven't shown their picture at all,
Mm-hmm.
like everybody knows who you're thinking of in your mind, right?
Absolutely.
You're not actually thinking maybe this drug dealer is a suburban housewife who's dealing pills.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yes, I do.
So, yeah, I definitely don't disagree that things are painted in the media the way that they want them to be. But yes, drug crime is definitely it's proportional. It's committed proportionally across the board.
And so now, based on the book, these users that are being locked up at a disproportionate rate and giving unfair time, like in the old days of Jim Crow and after Reconstruction, they're just being taken off the street and put in these prison, as they used to call it, prison farms, to do pretty much free to next to free labor. This is what we're talking about here.
Absolutely. And that's still going on today. I don't disagree with that prison populations are being used for labor and paid, 10 cents an hour or what have you. But something that people don't think about, which I think should be thought about more, is that they are being used to make money in ways that aren't necessarily connected with direct labor. Like, why are we seeing so many prisons that are popping up and you don't see more schools coming up? Because prisons make money. I'm not saying that schools don't make money too, but they don't make as much money for their investors nearly as prisons do. So just by having a prison and being a prison, and if you privatize that prison, you're going to make a lot of money from the government off of those, off of the inmates. So they don't necessarily even have to work to make you money. They just have to be there.
Wow. This is heartbreaking. This is heartbreaking. And it's going on, and nobody's even paying attention. They're more concerned about people's behavior and sexuality than the fact that people are really being enslaved.
Absolutely. Actually, that's one of the things in the play that's one of the main things in the play is that a lot of people in the time and place that the play takes place, they're being discriminated against because of their sexual orientation. I definitely I feel like anything to get your eyes off of what is actually happening, the big issues, anything, if you can make somebody hate someone, if you can make somebody hate their neighbor because of the way they live, because of their lifestyle, because of any reason, it keeps your eyes off of who you should be really angry at, who you should be really saying like, no, I'm tired of having to pay, not only having to pay for health care, which is now forced upon you. If you don't, you get you don't get as much back on your taxes if you're lucky enough to get anything on your taxes.
Right.
And then once we pay for health care, so we're already paying for our HMOs. But then on top of that, when I go into the doctor, I have to pay you again in order to be seen, my deductible, right? And then if I want to get medication that the doctor prescribes me, I have to get that too. And so if the government or, the powers that be can have you hating your neighbor and focus on hating your neighbor and not focus on the fact that you're forcing me to have health care and it's not anywhere towards single payer, which is the option that you presented me with when you ran for presidency, then we're good.
Uh-oh. I already know. We do not have enough time to go into this one. We got to get you back on the show because this is definitely talking about the blues.
Yeah, dude, it's real. I mean, most of us are working class. Most of us have been raised in this, and most of us have these feelings and thoughts, and we just don't know how to express them,
And
or we're too distracted.
right. So is it safe to say that you're voting for Bernie, or you just think the entire system needs to be shut down or rebuilt?
Well, well, you can't just shut something down without everything going chaotic, Like,
Right.
if I live in San Diego, if the system just shut down, everyone would be out of food and killing each other in a matter of 48 hours.
Wow.
So I'm not saying that.
Okay.
But I'm also, party politics is tough. You want to talk about Bernie or how do I say this? All politicians, all these guys, they've been in the game for a million years. Bernie wants to talk about oppressed people, but he doesn't want to talk about how Israel oppresses Palestine. So my point is that you may be saying something to me, you may be giving me pillow talk, but I know how it really is.
I dig it. That's tough. Yeah. Listen, we have to get you back on this show. We might even have to make a special segment of talking about the blues so we can really elaborate on this because this is important and very necessary and people need to hear this. But before we close, there's a couple of things I need. One, the title of your album and where the good folks can find you.
Okay, so the title of my album is just one word. It's Jade, Jade. That stands for not only like a color or a feeling. It also stands for one of my favorite musicians of all time, which is Amy Jade Winehouse. She did the same sort of thing with her first album with Frank. It not only stood for Frank Sinatra, who was one of her favorites, but also just her frame of mind for the album, which is just Frank.
I like that. I like that.
And you can find me now at SoundCloud or Bandcamp or YouTube, and then any social media platform out there.
Dig it. It's been amazing talking about the blues and everything else with you.
Yeah, right. And this mostly was talking about politics today.
Yeah, well, something that is the blues for a lot of us. So
it is.
It's really good that we touched on that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we'll definitely be having you back. Definitely.
Cool. I appreciate you having me on the show. You're an amazing, open person. I would love to speak with you more.
Absolutely. We're going to make that happen. And as for you all, you know what you've been doing. You've been listening to Talking About the Blues and our special guest of the day, Hilary Lankford. And two things that I always say and that you should know by now. Keep God first and keep on bluesing. To hear archives of the Talking About the Blues podcast interviews, go to the Talking About the Blues YouTube channel. And while you're there, subscribe to that channel. Talking About the Blues podcast is hosted and produced by Lamont Jack Purley. Production manager Denise Mrs. D. Purley. All rights reserved to Talking About the Blues.